In an epic brawl between Aquaman and Namor, which underwater Atlantean icon would come out on top? That's a question we normally probably wouldn't get an answer to in live action, right? I mean, Aquaman lives in Atlantis in the DCEU, and Namor chills in Atlantis over in the MCU. But because we live in a world now where the idea of a standard cinematic universe is becoming as boring as Thor the Dark World in slow motion, I'm about to pitch you something epic. Get ready for the most amazing idea ever that's sure to raise Tony Stark from his grave. Here it goes. Atlantis is going to be used to unite both the MCU and the DCEU into one epic crossover. How, you ask? Let's get into it. Both of the major superhero franchises, the MCU and the DCEU, are setting up long-term storytelling options, pushing the multiverse front and center. In the MCU, it looks like the multiverse will be very important going forward. With Doctor Strange sequel titled The Multiverse of Madness, and Tom Holland's Spider-Man 3 seems to get hit with casting news every other day regarding a former Spider-Man character returning in some capacity, which suggests multiverse shenanigans. And then over on the DCEU side, they seem to be wanting to set up a multiverse using The Flash, so they can justify a bunch of different Batman movies or something. Older Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, yup! So what's that got to do with Atlantis and its two most famous residents, Aquaman and Namor? A lot actually. Because really, we shouldn't just think of it as an MCU multiverse and a DCEU multiverse, but rather, let's just call it the multiverse. This presents an opportunity for the MCU and the DCEU to potentially cross over by doing something totally epic. Maybe Flash's tampering with the multiverse and Doctor Strange meddling will have unforeseen ramifications for that for a brief moment, as both the MCU universe and the DCEU universe collide, bringing certain shared locations and characters together for the first time on screen. For a short time, Metropolis and Gotham City suddenly appear in the MCU's Midwest somewhere. Maybe Captain Marvel and Shazam suddenly find themselves face to face, and Shazam compliments Carol Danvers on her name. But most importantly, maybe DC's and Marvel's versions of Atlantis suddenly combine into one, creating a very confused set of fish people. That would bring both Aquaman and Namor face to face, and come on! All of this may be illogical, but it would be worth it to see those two interact, right? But what would happen if these two Atlanteans actually did come face to face? We know both of them love Atlantis and would do anything to protect it. So would they be accepting of one another or each try to protect their own? I think it's logical that they would be a bit territorial if their underwater homes suddenly combined into one and they were forced to deal with this crisis. We don't know how Atlantis will look in the MCU yet, but it's probably going to be a lot different than the DCU's version of Atlantis, which creates serious problems. Like, is Namor going to wonder why there's an octopus playing the drums all the time? Is Aquaman going to wonder where the bright colors and trippy visuals are? That's a recipe for conflict, especially because Namor hasn't been portrayed as a straightforward hero in the past. His comic history seems him dabbling in both villain and hero territory, and there are a lot of us who think he could very well be the villain of Black Panther 2. If that's the case, then Namor would definitely go to war with Aquaman. He would want his Atlantis to be the only Atlantis, and really hate how this beer-loving, grungy rock and roll man-child decked out in all orange calls himself the King of Atlantis. An all-out underwater war would take place, making all the fish really confused. Because although Namor doesn't seem to use his fish telepathy quite as much as Aquaman, it can still come in handy and both of them would use it to attack the other. And although I would give Aquaman the slight edge, mainly because we at least know his style and skills, I wouldn't want these two to stay enemies forever. Like any great story, let there be an outside threat that threatens to destroy this new version of Atlantis that would force Aquaman and Namor to team up together to take it down. You know, exactly like Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, only this time better, and takes place completely underwater. This would create an event where we could not only see Aquaman and Namor fight each other, but also see them working together, which is just as epic. Alright, overall, is this an absolutely insane theory? You betcha. It's probably too much to ask to see both Aquaman and Namor on screen together battling over Atlantis, but here's why I think it could be a good idea. We're entering into a new age of superhero storytelling. The cinematic universe idea needs to grow and adapt to the times. Everyone has or wants a cinematic universe, so it would make sense to look at what comes next. So what's better than a bunch of different cinematic universes? One massive cinematic universe, of course. If we saw the MCU and the DCEU universes combined for a brief second and we saw this sort of crossover, that would be monumental. It would be the defining point in superhero movies for years to come, and open the door for all sorts of fun crossovers and even bigger events down the line. Who wouldn't want to see an Avengers vs. Justice League movie? And the best way to do that is by having Atlantis be the focal point and bringing Aquaman and Namor together on the screen. I actually want Aquaman and Namor to merge into one character and take over both universes and replace every leader with a dolphin. Too far? Okay, fine. Just don't complain when our dolphin overlords make us eat fish for dinner. Thanks for watching, CBR. See you next time.